40% of all Americans run out of money in retirement. If that system is broken, everything breaks down. We really are in a retirement crisis.
Hello world, it's your boy Ross Mack and welcome to Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance. Now whether you're a professional on Wall Street, a first-time investor, or just someone looking to change their overall financial situation, there's always a first step that you need to take. And look no further, because I'm going to be speaking with some of the most influential voices in my universe, and I'm going to be asking them about their path to economic prosperity. And my guest today is none other than Derek Ferguson, the Chief Administrative Officer of TIAA and a former interim CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation. He's also a Wharton alum and a Bronx native. Derek, thanks so much for joining us, man. How you doing?
Ross, I'm doing great, man, and thank you for having me, man. You know, I've been following your career for a while, and I'm just so proud of what you've been doing, man. What you're doing is so important, impacting our community, and especially impacting our young people. So I commend you for what you're doing, and definitely feel privileged to be here.
Please, man, you're so humble. Thank you for being here. And, you know, obviously I know a lot about you and your name always precedes any room I go in. But just to the people that don't necessarily know you, who would you say Derek Ferguson is?
Well, first and foremost, you know, I'm, somebody who really cares about his family. My parents are from Virginia. Okay. They grew up in the segregated South. Actually, my mom and dad both went to the same high school. My mom was the valedictorian in a really small African-American only school. So they came to New York and they settled into the Bronx. And, they always had this incredible aspiration for us. Neither one of them graduated college, but in my household, like, education was the key thing, was the most important thing. It was like education, entrepreneurship, faith, and just excellence. I did really great in school, graduated high school when I was 16, went to the Wharton School, which we know, honestly showed up there, I had no idea where I was.
That's insane. Wharton at 16.
Wharton at 16.
Middle of Philadelphia as a teenager.
Bronx born. I came with I'm gonna take you way back. I showed up on campus with bell-bottom leaves with my name on the bottom of them. So yeah, I was all the way Bronx. So it was just an incredible experience. And again, my comfort zone when I got in that environment was just numbers. Like, I was always just good with numbers. So once I got some numbers in front of me, I was comfortable. Majored in accounting, and then went on to the Harvard Business School. And so for me, my focus really, my journey has been around just mastering everything I try to do, but always keeping a mindset around, like, how am I impacting the world? Like, I felt like I was so honored and privileged to be in the places I was in that I had to have impact. And I had to do something that was bigger than me, that was something that would impact the community. So that's really what I would say has been a theme around my career.
Going to an Ivy League at the age of 16 sounds insane, but maintaining and being yourself out there with your parents sounds remarkable. So, let's segue to where you are today, right?
Yes.
Obviously, you're at a very storied franchise at TIAA, and coming from there, prior to there, you were at Robin Hood Foundation. But what made you choose TIAA?
Well, TIAA was interesting. So I was at the Robin Hood Foundation. Wes Moore was our CEO, and he decided to go run for governor. He won. He's now governor of Maryland.
Wow.
So, but our mission there was basically solving poverty in New York City. So it was just a monumental task, and he was up for it, and I was up for it, and we just had incredible, to put your head down every day and try to solve these problems of poverty. You just learn a lot about what's going right and what's going wrong in the world, right? So when Wes leaves and goes to run for governor, I met Tashonda Brown Duckett, the CEO of TIAA. Didn't know much about what TIAA was doing, knew they were a retirement company. And she went on to really describe for me that we really are in a retirement crisis. And the work we do at TIAA really is part of the answer to that crisis. So that again put me in that same mode of I can actually go solve a real problem that's going to impact people, the world in general, the country in general, but even more specifically, whatever problem we're facing in general, our communities, African American, minority communities, are facing them even worse. Yeah. So it was just a great opportunity to do something that would be very purposeful, mission driven, but also very commercial.
Wow. One, I also got to meet Tashonda, who I think is a huge heavy hitter on Wall Street. I think she's one of the dopest CEOs, and then on top of that, a female CEO, and I think she's just remarkable. And so when you think about TIAA, right, let's actually explain what TIAA is, and more importantly, the overall underlying mission, right? Because when you talk about solving a problem and retirement being a problem here in America, like, what is it, over half of Americans aren't prepared for retirement, and I think that even gets further exacerbated when you start thinking about, minorities or females, et cetera. So, like, let's explain what TIAA is,
yes,
and then maybe talk about kind of the overall mission there.
So going back over 100 years ago, Andrew Carnegie founded TIAA. And it's structured as a nonprofit. And what he was trying to solve for when he founded it was he was trying to solve for how can he help educators retire with dignity. So he saw these great educators doing all this great work, and then they would retire and not have enough. So he literally went out to construct a retirement plan that would allow educators and people at higher ed institutions to retire with enough money to have enough money to retire. So what he did is he created essentially this lifetime income product, which is still our core product today. So this is that product that it never goes away. So you're going to earn X amount per month for the rest of your life, and you have that set amount of money. So that product is what was introduced to higher ed. And at the time, we were focused on primarily higher ed. We ended up gaining 90% plus market share in the higher ed market. So major universities, Harvard, Yale, et cetera, all had TIAA retirement plans. And we had this unique product, which was this lifetime income product, which was the core of what we offered, which allowed people to retire and know that they would have a stream of income for the rest of their life.
That's remarkable. Right, I've obviously done a little work with TIAA, and one, obviously coming into it, they're focused on serving the people that serve others, right? But I know Tasunda, when she got in there, she said, let's be a little more laser focused on also retiring inequality. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's amazing that, sitting here right now, 2024, still 40% of all Americans run out of money in retirement. Right? 53% of African-American households run out of money in retirement. So we are looking at a system, if that system is broken, everything breaks down. So if your parents, can't run out of money in retirement, then you have to start funding them because they don't have money. So that's taking money out of what should be your nest egg, which you should be passing on to your kids. So it's just a generational deficit if we can't retire the right way.
Wow.
So that's that's like the problem we're facing. But if you break it down, there's a lot of stats that were kind of staggering. 40%, a lot of them are going to be 40%. So again, 40% of people retire without enough money.
Wow.
You have 40% of young people, 25 to 35, do not contribute to an employer plan.
Wow.
Right? 40% of African American households, only 40% of African American households contribute to a plan versus 63% of white households. So these deficits are going to lead to a definite gap in how people retire, which is going to impact everything about that person. So there's really three gaps that we think about. We think about the access gap, so who has access to plans? 57 million Americans do not have access to an employer plan, right? The access gap, the savings gap. So even when you have a plan, first thing I tell my kids, whatever job you get, join the retirement plan, a 401k plan immediately. Many people don't join. So in terms of the savings plan, we want people to actually join and then escalate how much money they put away, because something you talk about a lot, the earlier you start, the more you get the compounding of that money, right? Yeah. So if you wait, you can wait if you want, because a lot of people, I can't really afford it. You can always afford to put this money away. It's the best investment you're going to make ever, hands down, right? Because it's tax deferred, et cetera. And then the last gap is the guarantee gap.
Yep.
So, and this is that guaranteed lifetime income. So if you, 1975, about 90%, 80% of employees, 80% of employees had defined benefit plans, which gives you a lifetime income flow. That's down to like 12%. So most people have these defined contribution plans where you get a lump sum of money that's distributed once you retire. And that money is the money that can run out. So as opposed to having 100% of your retirement money just being in assets, we we believe, and we've seen through studies, that people need guaranteed income to assure that they can pay all their bills, have enough income flow in retirement.
The average American, and probably a lot more, aren't able to go to their parents and get that type of advice. I know when I started work, I had no idea how much I should be, contributing to my 401k, right? I'm like, I'll be rich at some point. I don't need that, right? Or better yet, I need to have that extra money and start paying off student loans. And so instead, I say, okay, let me start educating people, because access to information is the greatest barrier to helping break and, solve, and hopefully at some point, narrowing that gap when it comes to the wealth gap. But when I speak on that, I try to define what my why is, right? What would you say your why is?
My why is just that, at my core, I believe that if you work hard and you're as good as everybody else, the results should be the same. Mm-hmm. But, what we're dealing with in this country, as you think about gaps, right, and these wealth gaps, is, many people, like my family, we're fighting from behind. Right? And you can do everything right. If you think about it, you can do everything right. Like, you have people that wake up every morning, they do 40 hours a week of hard work. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they get and they're trying to just make ends meet, and they get to the end of their career like, yes, I'm retiring, this is great. And they retire and they don't have enough money. Yeah. You know what I mean? They've done everything right by the rules of the land. If they've been great people, they worked hard, and they just do not have enough money to retire. So, those type of inequities and what I consider just things that are not fair, those things get my, just get my energy up. I just feel like I've been put in such a position and been so fortunate to be in certain rooms and be in certain discussions, that these are the things that get me excited about fighting for them, because you're really just looking for equity and for people to get what they deserve. So that's what really keeps me going.
Man, I love this story and why you have your why, right? But look, guys, don't go anywhere. We're gonna take a short break, but stay with us and we'll be right back with you. All right, welcome back to Financial Freestyle. I'm Ross Mack, here with none other than Derek Ferguson. So I thought it was so important to hear your why, because I'm a person that literally said, I also want to find a better way to do service, right? I was working at a fund, right? A fund of funds, and we were looking to invest in a specialty finance company. And one of the things I realized when I was like, oh man, this looks like a great investment, right? It's uncorrelated to the market, right? They're probably making 20% IRR in a down market. This is remarkable. The thing is, they owned a portfolio of cash advance loan places. And when you think about it, where are those at, right? They're in, traditionally underserved Black and brown communities. So I realized, right, the average person, right, Black and brown people are traditionally underbanked. So what are they doing, right? If they need money tomorrow and they don't get paid to 2 days, they're gonna go to a cash advance, and they might end up paying 200-300% on that loan. And so I realized at that moment that when it comes to truly narrowing the wealth gap, we have to narrow that exposure gap. And so that's one of the things that, I figured out what my why was. But talking about narrowing the wealth gap, right? I know you're big into kind of the overall crypto space. So tell me a little bit about what you got going.
Yeah, I think the way I viewed it, and I have to give all credit to my son, who's one of your peers, Wharton peers, and one of our peers, I guess.
Yeah, Wharton.
And he was the first one that ever was talking to me about blockchain, and this back when nobody else was doing it, was investing in cryptocurrency. And the way he described it to me was not as much about the tokens or the speculation, or it was more about what this technology could do, right? And the fact that when I started thinking about how to solve some of these issues and how to really create economy, you just had to look toward the next thing. So what is the next thing? So what is this blockchain technology, and how could you use it to actually solve some problems, to create some new economics? So the way I think about the wealth gap is that if we do everything the same, and all of us, if we just say, hey, we're not doing this great, we're investing or whatever, and we all catch up and we all do the same, the wealth gap stays the same. In fact, the dollar amount of the wealth gap goes up. The percentage amount, if the percentage amount stayed the same, even if that happened, the dollar amount of the wealth gap goes up, right? Yep. So nothing changes. So how do you change it? How do you actually say, when you say you want to close it, that means you have to get some economics from somewhere, different. Yeah. And I think when we think about our communities, and my son was working on this, he was just like, look, we need a way to actually democratize influence. And monetize influence. Because if you think about the place where our community contributes a lot, but only gets a portion of the value. It's in influence and creation, right? It's like, we're creating, like if you think about whole new genres, movements, areas of the economy, like, just hip hop or, just things that we have solely created. And we end up giving away the 90% and keeping the 10%, right? So how do you control that better? So, just when you talk about how technology can do that, you can say, imagine if, transparency, and everyone seeing the marketplace in a transparent, democratized way, right? So, for example, if I'm an influencer, I'm a Ross Mack, and 5 different financial firms want to access my following on my base, and there are 5 different offers, right? We can see in this system, you're going to be able to see all 5 of these offers, right? And understand who's bidding lower, who's bidding higher. You're going to be able to see what they're bidding on for somebody else. So now everything is totally transparent and democratized because, and that will allow you to get the market, a real market price, right?
Wow.
So if I could pull you over to one corner and offer you something, you never know what the other 5 people are getting offered or what the other companies are offering, then I'm going to win that battle of I got more value out of you than what the market would have allowed. So this is a system really that democratizes and makes a marketplace out of influence and how influencers are able to monetize their value. The second piece of it, just to add to it, is that it's a global marketplace, specifically connecting America with Africa. At the time, what they saw and they observed with the demographics was just a fast-growing youth population in Africa and their influence and impact on all of the areas of culture. So music, film, sports, and now you see, I remember when we first started this many years ago, after I started learning more about it, I predicted that 20-30% of the music charts was going to be African music. And that's what's happening right now because there's just so much creativity and so much good creativity, but they really don't have a ready marketplace. So putting that marketplace together with what we already have in the US really creates a new economy. And what I love about it is that it's actually economics that don't exist now, right? Because the economics that exist are depressed in terms of the actual amounts that are being received by the influence. So if you now increase that, that's now additional wealth that didn't exist in the system, and that's truly closing a gap.
That's fascinating, right? And so wait, I don't think you said the name. Obviously, I know the name, but what's the name?
So the beauty's in the name. The name of it is vibranium.
Wow.
And if you think about what that name means, it really represents like that thing we're going to protect.
That resource.
We're not going to let anybody else have it. Like we're no longer going to give away our natural resource. We're going to protect it. We're going to grow the value of it. You can't even own it.
That's remarkable. And so one, shout out to your son. I'm a little upset he didn't tell me more about crypto when we were at Penn together. But what I will say, right, is I always say this to myself, what would I do if I can go back in time, right? In fact, I have a Maconomics Wealth Summit in Chicago in a few weeks, and I just put out some content to promote it. And the funny thing I said was, look, if I can talk to my younger self, if I can go back in time, I would tell myself, dude, you're never getting tall enough, you're never going pro, so stop focusing so much on the girls, but instead, let's learn a different skill set. Let's start thinking about investing. So I pose that question to you. If you could talk to your younger self, what would you say?
I'm getting close to 60. I'm 59, and to know what you know at 59 and be 30 would be like an amazing thing because I've learned so much more. And I think some of the things that they sound cliche, but they become more meaningful after you actually experienced it. It's really just relationships.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like every single relationship. I would say, again, one of the downsides of showing up to UPenn from the Bronx, I was like, I didn't really know how to interact with people. I was awkward about that. Like when I played basketball too, so when we got on a basketball court, I could interact with you. We're good. We speak the same language. But when we're just in like accounting class, I'm kind of like I'm interacting with the people I'm more comfortable with. So I probably didn't stretch myself as much as I should have in terms of building those relationships. And for me, vast difference from when I was an undergrad at UPenn and then when I went to business school at Harvard, because at that point I had learned that skill, I had more years of experience of that skill and then forged great relationships. So I would say relationships are key. That's money in the bank. The other thing for me, and I try to tell my kids this, but youth is like, for myself, making like my faith the center of my life, I just would have done it earlier. I would say the third thing is about investing, right? So, I think as with a lot of people, you think you need like a lot of money accumulated to start investing. So I think I was always like, hey, when I get this much money in the bank, then I'll start thinking about investments and so on. Now I had, I was very interested in my dad growing up, was always talking about different stocks, and he even was trading commodities. He was doing sophisticated stuff, and this is someone, who never went to college. So I would see it, right? And, we would talk about, like, if he did well, he'd tell me about it. So I was definitely interested in it, but I just was like, I'm gonna put $100 into something? That doesn't feel like I should be doing it. But now I know, like, even that $100 is better than zero.
I often say, like, the greatest equalizer is the exposure gap, right? And the fact that you were exposed to the stock market at a young age, the fact that your children are exposed to your wealth of knowledge that comes from generation to generation, that's why we do it, right? And obviously here on Financial Freestyle, the goal is to just help educate, right? Because so often financial literacy is taboo, right? We don't talk about it nearly enough. And one of the things that I do is I pose a question to the audience, right? It's called Dear Mac. And I'm gonna pose it to you, right? We have Snook 15. Snook 15 said, what's the first thing I should do to get it going, to be financially successful? So what advice would you have for Snook?
So the first thing is, and a lot of people miss this, is live on a budget. Understand how much money you're bringing in and how you're spending it. And sometimes it's like you think you have it in your head, or maybe you don't care to have it in your head. Put it down on paper, write it down, get a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, break down your budget. And you have to save, right? So in your budget, like, yes, put your money in your 401k, and then you have to save something. So, like, a lot of people, well, I can't afford this. I got to spend this money because I need to have this. Well, do you need to have that?
Yeah.
And if you sacrifice that for a short amount of time, it's going to be of great benefit to you. So first, have your budget and know what you're living on. If you're living with zero savings, just know it. Because a lot of people run around like, I don't know why I don't have any money. Well, you're spending it all. You know what I mean? Let's do the math. You just spent everything. So anyway, so do your budget and live by the budget. Then it's, again, get in your employer retirement plan. And the third thing is start understanding marketplace. Like the advent of tools like the Robinhood app and shows like you're all of what you share on a daily basis. I watch you with your kids every morning. You know what I mean? And a lot of other people sharing now at a clip that we've never seen. Just start dipping your toe in the water. Start simple. You know what I mean? Start simple, with the ETFs and funds that are, that are kind of doing the work for you. And then as you learn more, learn more and grow and make sure you're balancing your risk, but you got to start. Learn it and start. And the earlier you start, the better.
The earlier you start, the better. You got to control your inflows, right? You got to know your inflows and outflows. People quite so often are spending money that they don't have, right? Buying things we don't need with the money we don't have to impress people we don't like. And so start with that budget, start investing, right? I always say you got to pay your future self. Because when you get 50, 60, you're going to be upset at your 20, 30-year-old self for just blowing that money. So I love that. Yes. And I love everything. Thanks so much, Mr. Derek Ferguson, for joining us.
Just congratulations again, man. Great show, and I look forward to great things.
Look, I want to thank my guy, Derek Ferguson, for sharing his story with us. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Financial Freestyle. Look, I hope we gave you guys some very valuable insights and inspiration for your own wealth journey and acceleration. I'm Ross Beck. Make sure that you come back next week because we got you covered. We're going to build wealth together.